All right, good afternoon. This is Brenda Meller with Meller Marketing, and I am live here today on Facebook and LinkedIn with Liz J. Simpson, and I'm going to welcome Liz in just a moment. But while I'm waiting for the live stream to come up on my LinkedIn, I'm just going to take a moment to invite those of you who are joining us here today, if you could take a moment and just drop a comment and let us know where you're joining us from and what time of day it is where you're at as well. And we'll have some parts during today's presentation where I'll be asking you, our audience, if you have any questions for our distinguished interviewee today. And also just would love to know, is this the type of topic you're interested in? And what other questions do you have as we're going throughout? So Liz, how are you? I'm so happy to see you today.
I'm so excited to be here. I adore you. So this is my joy. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, the feeling is mutual. Liz and I met through a wonderful, wonderful organization called Together Digital. And she and I were actually both speaking at the national conference this past fall. And I was looking through the agenda at different topics. And do you remember the name of your topic for your presentation?
Master the Pitch.
Master the Pitch. And I'm kind of newish to this world of being an independent consultant and still refining who I am. I'm a marketer. I'm not a salesperson. So when I saw this description, I was like, I got to go and check out this session. And I sat pretty close to the front of the room, and I was just loving your presentation. I love your energy. I love your genuineness, your enthusiasm, and I'm so grateful to the Together organization for bringing us together.
Likewise. And you were an amazing participant too. So as a speaker, that's a huge deal. You have events and you're trying to get audience engagement. So that was one of the first things that struck a chord with me. I was like, oh, she's a go-getter.
My hack too, and for those of you who might be joining, I'm an introvert and I will always be an introvert. And that's not a personality flaw, that's just a characteristic. But I have found that, especially when I was younger, I was very nervous about speaking up and public speaking. And I learned one of the ways you get over that is just by continually doing it, by speaking. Yep. And every chance I have when a panelist like Liz will say, a speaker like Liz will say, I'd like some audience participation. Who can we get to volunteer? And I find my hand and I'm like, what am I doing?
Who are you? Put that down.
Because we were talking about and you're like, get up and do your pitch. And I had like no practice doing it, but I loved
it.
It was fun to do. And I love the feedback. And I got some people kind of saying, wow, you look it was a different personality when you're sitting down, and then you got up and it was like, wow, all this energy coming out. But I loved your presentation, and I've been following you online since, and we had a great conversation a couple months ago. And when I reached out to you, I said, hey, what should we talk about? And you said, let me just pull it up on screen here. And you said, self-awareness and sales for our topic today. So we're going to jump into the conversation in just a moment here, Liz, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself. But before you do that, I'm just going to pop online and see who's on with us today. So we've got 10 viewers so far here. I'm just popping on LinkedIn to see what's happening here in the activity. So we'll give a little shout out to those who are joining us. We have Amy from Detroit.
Hey, Amy.
Let's see here. It's a little tricky, I've noticed here on the comments too. What I find is the easiest way to do this is if you go back to your LinkedIn feed, you can usually see the comments a little bit better. So we've got 13 people online. We've got 2 comments so far. Bayaness says, nice magnifique. So thank you both for joining us. And for those others who are joining us online, drop a comment below if you're watching this on LinkedIn. And here's a little fun thing I learned too. I'm using StreamYard for this interview today. If you go on to, let's see if I can get my hand on here, this link for facebook.com Meller Marketing. If you go on and watch the stream from there, you can actually leave a comment and I can put your comment up on the stream so we can actually see that online. You can't do that on LinkedIn. It's a little limitation with the technology, StreamYard and LinkedIn as well. So enough about the technicalities. Liz, let's talk about you. If you could tell us a little bit of your background, how you got into this world of helping people with sales and sales training and all that great stuff.
Yes, it's a crazy story. Life has definitely taken me on its own journey. I was in sales for over a decade. So I did everything I started off in call centers, door-to-door sales, and then I was an insurance rep, and I did retail and all of those things. And I'd worked my way up to where I thought my goals were in sales as a field sales insurance agent. And I just hit a point in my life where I felt like, I guess, a early or late midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it.
You realized you wanted something different, right?
I was. It's interesting, that we create these goals for what we think success looks like. And then we get there and we're like, is that it? Like, is this what I was really trying to get to? And so anyways, at that point in my life, I really focused on how do I pour into other people? So the crazy part of my story is I launched a domestic violence awareness movement, and I wanted to help women survivors. And in those conversations, it was all about self-awareness, self-love, relationships, self-awareness. How do I be cognizant of how I'm showing up in the world? How do I build healthier relationships? And I just loved that. Like, I loved the subject of people and human behavior and how we create deeper connection. And the crazy story is, behind the scenes, I was doing some digital stuff that made businesses want me to come consult with them. And so how it bridged together was, I realized, okay, I thought I was running as far away from sales as possible. And I was like, I'm done. But in that work, I kind of reignited my passion and love for sales, because I saw it from a different perspective of, how do we create these business relationships that are more meaningful? And how do we do good business by being good people? And so now that translates to me as a sales training of helping people really better understand how to communicate effectively, how to be self-aware, and how to influence other people by being buyer-centric. So that's my story.
That's awesome. I love throughout your journey too. I think you've always incorporated, part of your life story and your experiences into what you do. And there's this genuineness about you. Like, I've seen other people present, and I kind of feel like I'm being messages are being pushed on me, or I'm being sold to. And I've never felt that with you, with any of your communications, whether they are electronic, social media, or seeing you live. It's always been a very, very genuine, and it's been a very empowering, inspirational approach. I mean, I think I told you when I saw you present, I was like, yeah, I just want to get out of there. And I was like, yes, why should we feel bad about money? Why should we feel bad about our, I mean, it was just very inspiring and motivating, and you just got this energy and this light from within that you bring into your situation. So sometimes I've heard too that when you're feeling like you're at a point and you're not where you think you should be, you kind of feel like the universe is pulling you back. It's almost like you got to think about a slingshot, like it's pulling you back into something greater, right?
Yes, it's definitely been that experience. And as a business owner like yourself, I've had to realize to just surrender, because we try to muscle and create these things. And oftentimes it's weird. Like, we have these strengths and passions and desires for a reason, but a lot of times we're fighting them. We're like, no, I want my package to look like this. And so when I left corporate, I always joke that I thought it was career suicide. When I started doing that work with women, I was like, what are you doing? Yeah. And so it's really ironic now that what I thought was a detour really was the best trajectory back into sales. So it's just amazing. Yeah. So love it.
So let's talk about, so when I reached out to you, I mean, I'm going to go back to this previous kind of image here, and I've been developing this series, and I'm calling it Social Media Pie, and I'm evolving as I go. But, basically the premise here is that I'm finding people who are inspiring people, that's the P, who are in informing and educating you, those of you who are watching us here today. And when I reached out to Liz, I said, I'd love to have you come and join me. So what can we talk about? And you said self-awareness. So tell me, what's kind of the background of you thinking of the topic, and then let's have a discussion.
Yes, absolutely. So, there's people who have a high aversion to sales. Like, sales is a bad word to them, and they think of it as manipulative and sleazy. And in the digital age, those tactics are not even effective anymore if you wanted to use them. So there's that. And there's people who love sales, right? They're in a professional career in sales, and they're trying to figure out, how do I be more effective in communication? And I think one of the key cornerstones, that is not taught enough is the importance of self-awareness, like being aware of your desires, managing your emotions, being cognizant of how you're showing up in the world, how you're perceived by other people, and then being more intentional about understanding someone else's map of the world and how to more effectively communicate with them. So I would love that. It's a way to talk about sales that's a little bit more palatable for some people.
How did you come? I mean, is this something you just kind of came up with, or was it in a way of thinking that you evolved to, or what brought you there? Because it is not a traditional way of approaching sales. And I completely agree with you. I'm a marketer. I'm not a salesperson. So when I hear sales, I'm like, oh, I don't want to be sold too. So how did you come about that approach?
Yeah, it was by accident, really. So when I left corporate, like I said, I was running as far away from sales as possible. And I was on this whole journey for meaning and fulfillment. And in that, I was just on my own journey of self-awareness. And it's crazy as adults. It's crazy as an adult to realize, I'm not really sure who I am. I don't know this new person. And I thought that was unique to me. And then now more and more as I do this work, I realize so many of us, that's a human behavior. A lot of times people are disconnected from how have I evolved? What are my preferences? How do I show up in the world? What are my strengths? Okay. I joke all the time that as a salesperson in interviews, they always had me fill out personality assessments, but they never shared the results. Oh, right. So
what does that mean then?
Yeah, right. So it's like, whatever I showed up as was good enough to get the job, but I never understood enough to really leverage those strengths. So anyways, it was through that experience that my own journey of self-awareness and working with other people. And you're like, oh, we're all in the business of people. The best communicator always wins. So, you have to understand self-awareness to be an effective communicator. So that's how that evolved.
Yeah. So you work with individuals, you work with organizations. I mean, who are you helping with your teachings and your trainings? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a mix. It's mostly professional service firms. So it's typically someone who's in a role of, an expert at what they do. They're managing accounts. They typically are, doing some type of fulfillment and having to influence clients to bring them in. Sometimes they're independent consultants. Sometimes they're a leader, a business development manager or a VP of sales who's leading a team. They're the people who are responsible for how are we consistently bringing in clients and maintaining those client relationships.
Okay. And it sounds like people at that level too, I mean, I have to kind of ask the question going back to the self-awareness concept too, like, and I've had some clients similar where I like to say experience rich, and maybe there's, they're LinkedIn averse or LinkedIn apprehensive or whatever you want to call it, or whatever, maybe it's self-awareness averse or self-awareness all knowing. You don't need to tell me what I need to know about yourself. So I mean, talk about that process too of kind of identifying and going through that process with your clients.
Yeah, it's funny because when I first started and I had, as a consultant and leading my own business, I had imposter syndrome because I look younger than I am. So everyone thinks I'm a teenager. I look younger than I am and my approach is a bit unique. But what I found is buyers buy outcomes. So the results, people cared more about the results I was getting. And then as they see results, they're curious about the methodology. Okay. So the benefit has always been, and that's the point of communication, right? It's people care more about what can you do for me? What does the end result look like? I'm trying to get here. Can you get me there? And then when you start to get them there, they go, oh, you know what? Those are some unorthodox methods, but as long as they get me to the end result, that matters. Right. And privately, it's funny that when you show up transparently and authentic, I think we all want that. I think we all have some type of admiration for that person who plays full out in life, who just shows up fully present. And so I find that people are drawn to that. And even those who we think are self-awareness averse, it resonates with them. And so they tend to learn more. So it's crazy. Like when I started, I thought it's just going to be women because we think of women as more fluid in their communication and open.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's been interesting because I've had a lot of male clients that if I judged them from the outside, I would have thought I would never resonate with you. But then you hear the stories behind the scenes. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to do good business and improve as people as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you have like a really broad diversity of clients that you're working with and different backgrounds and experiences. And what I hear in your approach too is you're meeting them where they can be met, as opposed to starting into a process that they may not be as receptive to. And, the end game is really sales. So if you can demonstrate that you can get them to those results, they're more likely to come around to that side too. So what are some maybe just kind of tips that you could offer to people who work in a sales role, or any insights you can offer to our community?
Absolutely. So I think one of the first things is really understanding your own strengths, right? So whether that's a DISC assessment, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Strength Finders, something like that, where you can do a deep dive into what motivates you, how do you naturally show up, what are your strengths. I think too often we spend an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out how to focus on our weaknesses instead of really leveraging, these are the things I do well, here's how I show up in the world. And I think when you deeply understand that, you also understand how others perceive you. I had a mentor, so I went to talking about my journey, like 5 years ago, there's a woman, Nirka, and she had a neuro-linguistic programming training, like a certification that I went to some years ago in Arizona, I think it was. And one of the things she said that was profound to me, she said, the most powerful communicator in a conversation is the most flexible. And so it's the idea that you're trying to adapt to the other person's needs. But a lot of times we struggle with that because we're dealing with our own head trash of, what am I doing? How am I showing up? Am I saying this right? Are they looking at the spinach in my teeth? And so we're concerned about ourselves, but it's all about, but knowing that all humans have that, like our favorite topic is YOU. While I'm concerned about my head trash, the other person's concerned about theirs. So it's better for me to move out of the way, be confident, show up, take up space, and be more intent on, how am I listening to this person? What does that eye twitch mean? Oh, what they smiled just there? What resonated with them? Let me pay attention to their body language. So finding a way to really adapt. And I think the more confidence is probably the word. The better you understand your own strengths, the more confident you show up, which means that you can actively listen, which is a word we use a lot. But a lot of times people can't actively listen because they're so insecure or they're trying to overcompensate.
Yeah, and they're trying to think about, well, what am I going to say next? Well, I have an idea that talked about her earlier point, so I'm not going to listen to anything else she said because I want to get this out. And I have you noticed too, especially I think with the younger generation coming in, I noticed managing a team that sometimes they would get so impatient, like, I don't want to forget to say this, so I'm going to interrupt you right now, in the middle of that conversation. Whereas, those that are more experienced in the workplace are more respectful about that dialogue process and waiting their turn, so to speak.
Yeah, and it's being curious about why. Like, that's the real part of self-awareness of, why do I feel like I have to say this point? Am I trying to prove that I'm valuable? Am I trying to prove I'm an authority? Like, so if you understand why you do that, and then you can face it and say, you know what? Well, if I'm trying to prove that I'm an authority and strengthen this relationship, actually, instead of making sure my point's heard, it's more effective to hear their points and repeat them back. So let me chill. If I forget that thought, it's okay. But it's being very curious about your behavior and why things that are important to you are important.
Okay. It's really a mind shift too, right? Because you have to understand that approach. And that's not, we as humans, we have this human behavior thing, right? That we're used to doing things a certain way. And sometimes it takes that conscious effort and practice and working with a coach or, a friend or somebody to mentor you to remind you along that journey as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a never-ending journey. Like, I don't think I'll ever arrive. I think because we're always changing, hopefully you're always changing and evolving and growing. And I was just telling some people around the holidays, I'm having to always introduce people to like Liz 3.0 and Liz 4.0. Like, I'm learning her because we're growing, definitely.
How has your business changed? From when you first left corporate, what were you doing then to what you're doing now? Tell us a little bit about that.
It's crazy. It has definitely evolved with the market. So I had my own plans of, I just want to pour into people and make the world a better place. Like that is where I started with coaching. And then it evolved into digital marketing for a while because in building my movement, I didn't know I was doing digital marketing. I'm like, well, we need Facebook ads, we need landing pages, we need a list. And so then I started consulting on that. Okay. And then I started to find my footing when I was brought in for business development consulting and realizing I'm more of a hunter. So I'm that person. My personality type, that's why that's important, is I like building something from nothing. I like starting things. I like creating relationships. I'm a hunter. I'm a go-getter. And so when I evolved more into business development consulting, that's how we've kind of parlayed now into new business development training.
Okay.
And LinkedIn training.
I love that you've kind of embraced it too, and you haven't, been afraid to make the changes. I think sometimes it's like letting go, right? Well, but I think what I see from you is just this positive energy, and a lot of times you meet people and you kind of feel like they're dead inside a little bit. Like, what do you do for a living? What are you passionate about? Well, this is what I've been doing for the past 20 years, and they're just like, but I'm get paid very well, and they've got these golden handcuffs that are keeping them in the show, and they won't leave it. And it's just like you just want to shake them and go, there's more to life, and there's not just one path to success. And you've seen, when you lean into your strengths and you can really embrace those as a part of your career, I mean, it lights you up from inside, but you can be more successful as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
definitely. And it's, I think the hardest thing for me was the match of what makes me come alive. What do I really love? Like, what do I lose time doing? And where do I have the highest propensity to help others? Like, where do I create the biggest wins for others? And when you can create that blend between this is what makes me come alive and this is what the thing that people want most from me, it's like, I mean, I believe success is inevitable, but the good thing is, even if it wasn't, you'd still be fulfilled, Right.
And you love being on stage, if I'm not mistaken, too, right?
I do. It's crazy.
Throw something up on screen here. This is, let's see if I can share it. This your website. I just think it's cool because it's like this live action showing you up on. Let's see if I can pull it up here. It might take me a second to do this.
You are fancy. I'm loving this.
I just love it. It's so fun. It's like. And I remember being at the Together Digital Conference, and I mean, your mannerisms and your energy and the way you interact with it. I mean, like, that's her. That's like what I saw. And, people, that's me clapping in the front row. I love it. Even, you've got these bold statement shirts and, the text message on your back. I mean, you're just, the whole package is just, it's wonderful. So is public speaking a large part of your business, or tell us about that?
Yeah, it definitely is. I love people. That sounds so cliche, but I really do. My goal, I feel like this is my ministry. Like, sales is my ministry, but I really just love empowering people and helping them be more successful, and just self-actualizing and being bold. So speaking is powerful because I just feel like that's the space to really pour into someone and create that transformation. It just is the most effective way to do it. And it's funny because how I think I look when I speak, and then when I look at my videos, I'm like, I am so mean. Like, I'm so much in my head. I think that I'm smiling the whole time I'm presenting.
You think you're serious.
And I realize I'm much more serious, but I am. It's like, I want people to have transformation. I want you to go get it. I want you to be confident. I want you to have the skill set. And so just whenever I can be in front of people and just create that connection, like authentic connection of we're all people, let's put our masks aside, let's talk about our real challenges, and then let's talk about how we can be more effective in connecting with others. That's the best for me. And then for building the trust, right? If we know that from a sales perspective, it's the shortest, how do I say this? It's the shortest sales cycle. If someone can come experience me, see me for who I really am, if they value what I offer, then it shortens the sales cycle for trust, authority, and all of that. So it's a great sales strategy as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you spoke at Inbound, right?
That was awesome.
And what's next for you? Any conferences coming up right now, or still in planning for the year?
Yeah, still in planning. So, potentially Inbound. There's some tech conferences. Like tomorrow, I'm speaking here locally at a law firm on strategic relationship building. So some things coming up, waiting on a few terms and signing on the dotted line before I announce them. But yes, it should be a really awesome speaking year.
Oh, awesome. Well, let's so glad to hear. I'm going to take a moment to look at, what's that?
Where are you going to be, Brenda? Let's talk about
I'm actually going to take a pause to look at our comments here and see who else we've got joining it. We got Vicente coming from the UK. So we're international today, Liz, you and I, right there. We have Allison joining us from Metro Detroit. Hey, Allison, nice to see your name again. She's been on my lives a few times. Julio's joining us. Paul is joining us from New Zealand. So a couple other folks overseas here. Brad is saying self-awareness and self-improvement, the 2 keys necessary for growth and success in an organization. Absolutely, Brad. Thanks for your comment. Muhammad is joining us from Serbia. And we have a Stevenson who's joining us as well. We're up to about 35 viewers on the session here. And I want to remind you guys, if you're just joining us, I'm going to go on, let's see here. Today we're kind of talking on different topics with Liz J. Simpson. We're focusing on self-awareness in sales. So if you are in a sales role, or maybe you're independently employed, maybe you're a business owner, or you just have some questions about that concept of self-awareness in sales, drop your comments below. And if you're watching this in playback as well, still drop them in the comments below, and we'll make sure that Liz gets a chance to just respond to your questions. And I usually like to keep these broadcasts right around 30 minutes. We'll probably go about another 5 to 10 minutes, wait to see if any additional comments come in from the audience. And then we'll just kind of wrap things up and get back to our work days. Now, Liz, you're in San Antonio, am I remembering?
Yes, Texas.
How's the weather out there today?
It's amazing. I think it's like 60s, 70s today, but the sun is just so bright here. So by 2 o'clock, it's wonderful. Oh, is it snowing? Is it snowing where you're at?
No, I'm in Metro Detroit, and I think we're in the 30s. So we had a big snowfall about a week or so ago, and I'm looking out right now, and there's like still piles of snow everywhere. But it's actually been a really mild winter for us here. So we had like snowfall in November, which was unseasonably early, but it was heavy, and the kids had a day off of school. And then the whole month of December, we had like nothing really. And then January, we just got a little bit. So,
wow,
it's fine. I mean, now that the snow's melting again, I feel like spring should be here tomorrow, but we've got a couple months left to go. So.
Yeah, you have a little bit of time. I'm originally from Chicago, so I remember winter far too well. I don't miss it, but I remember it very well.
And it's to the point where it's just so bitterly cold, and like your hands just get chapped and raw all the time from being outside. But it really hasn't been that bad of a year this year for us. So we're looking forward to the spring around the corner.
Knock on wood.
Yeah.
It stays that way.
So are you still involved with your local chapter for Together in Digital San Antonio?
I am. I'm in love. So we'll have a little competition. I just think I have the best chapter in the country.
How long have you been involved with that group?
Gosh, I think it's going on a year and a half, I want to say. I think this will be 2 years this summer. So about a year and a half. And that was such a blessing for me. I really call as you know, as the brand, we say we're digital sisters, but I really believe, they are my sisters. So as someone whose focus is digital strategies, and who worked remotely, I have a remote business, right? I office, remotely for years. I say about the first 3 to 4 years of my business, I just felt like no one around me understood me.
Right.
And I used to joke, I promise I'm not a drug dealer. I promise. They're like, so you stay at home.
And there's periodically people dropping things off or coming in and out, right?
They're like, what does she do? I'm like, no, I promise I have a legitimate business. But so many people didn't understand it. And so I was at brunch one day, and oh gosh, I think it was Christina. A young lady, Christina, was like, there's a new group coming. And at the time it was called Women in Digital.
Yep.
And immediately when she said Women in Digital, I was like, when and where? I have to be there. There are other women who are in digital fields. I need to connect.
There are people like me, right?
Yes, there are other people who are, working on the cloud remotely and doing things that the rest of the world around us is like, what's going on? So yeah, I love Together Digital. I'm still involved there.
Yeah.
And congratulations to you. I see you took on a new chair position.
Yeah. So I have you been in a board role yet? I feel like you have for your chapter.
In a board role? Yes. I was sponsorship chair when I started, and now I'm in advisory board. So we'll talk later about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because I'm coming into sponsorship chair, and even like this whole conversation today is really relevant for me, because as you know, sponsorship chair is selling, right? And it's sponsors for the chapter. And I'm like, I always tell my clients, I'm like, I'm a marketer, I'm not a salesperson. So this is definitely going to be a stretch year and a growth year for me, getting into this role. But I did, use the position as an opportunity on LinkedIn. I added it to my experience section, and it pushed out a notification. And it's a, really neat technique too, of giving visibility to the organization that you sit on the board for, but then also every person that messaged me and congratulated me, I messaged them back and said, thanks, it's a new role. Any advice for me? And I'm actually putting together a blog with all the advice I received from people and
Amazing.
stuff. So I'm always like multi-tab, like how can I use what I'm using and put it in another place and package it up? But yeah, it's I've been involved with the group for about 2 years now, and it's been a great resource. And I'm guessing too, you're probably involved in other professional organizations, chambers, anything else locally or nationally?
Not really, no. My business is my life. I don't know how I do anything else, honestly.
But you do have, I'm going to see if I can pull this up on screen. You do have a designation from LinkedIn. Do you mind if I put you on the spot and just,
Oh,
you know,
yes,
I love
that made my year.
What was that? Let me pull it up on screen. And you're a top 15 in sales, right? Is that what they're saying?
Yeah. They say sales influencer to follow in 2020. That's the official phrase.
That is awesome. Seriously, that is like an amazing achievement. Let me see if I can pull my screen up a little bit larger to make it a little bit easier for people to see. So is that something that came from LinkedIn, Liz, or where?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I didn't know anything about it. I just woke up. I mean, I think it was the day after New Year's. Yeah. And I was actually on the road and I started getting all these notifications on LinkedIn. I'm like, what's going on? And so they dropped an article. They had already done their research. They had highlighted some of my LinkedIn articles, had grabbed my bio. So yes, that's from LinkedIn themselves. I'm like, ooh, I'm official.
That's awesome. And I love how you've merchandised it right in your LinkedIn headline too. And I sat in on one of your webinars. You know, you and I have some commonness in that we both help people to leverage, you know, LinkedIn more effectively. Your approach is, you know, more from the sales perspective. So I've never felt like it's competitive. But when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, I know her. You know? So
it's super cool. It was the highlight. You know, we were talking earlier before this broadcast, so just about this year is already flying by. Like it already feels a bit overwhelming. Yeah. And so I was at that time that this came out, I was just feeling so bogged down with all the demands of the new year and new clients. And that definitely was, I was like, okay, if this is how we're starting the year.
Right. Game on, right? Let's get it going here. So I think we're going to end with, I'm going to ask a question that came in and my battery's getting low. So I'm going to go off camera. I'm really, very polished when I do these things, Liz, because my lighting doesn't work. And I'm like, hold on, I got to adjust my light. I'm real. I'm genuine. What you see is what you get, people.
I love it.
But I love it. Question while I'm plugging this in here. So Brad is asking the question, how do you see the gig economy changing how sales will be done in the future?
Oh, great question. So I don't think it necessarily will change sales. I think it will change those who are giggers, right? So I think the responsibility for so many who are freelancers and consultants is they're going to realize the importance of understanding sales skill sets. And I've worked with a lot of freelancers and consultants, and oftentimes when they leave corporate and they decide to become giggers, it's the thought of, I want to have control of my revenue, of my income. I want to be in control of, you know, what I'm doing, how I'm spending my time. And inevitably, what you find out is that you spend more time on marketing and sales than you do on the actual fulfillment of doing the thing that you love. Right. And so, but on top of that, if we don't know how to influence, if we don't know how to sell, if we don't know how to demand our worth in the marketplace, we will leave jobs and become giggers only to not get our worth, because you have to be able to ask and demand it. Yeah. So I don't know that I think the gig economy will change sales, because I believe in the goodness of sales and that it's about influencing and relationships. But I think that giggers are going to soon realize that I'm a great graphic designer, but I better become a great salesperson too. Right, right. You definitely need to balance that part. And that's been one of my kind of learnings through the process too. And one thing I was just talking the other day to somebody about too, is like when you are independent, you know, you can be the specialist, the best specialist in whatever it is that you do. But if you don't know how to sell, I mean, there's not a paycheck that rolls around every 2 weeks that comes into your checking account, right? I mean, it's like, it's not there unless you're continually proving value. You cannot fake this, right? Like, no, you cannot. And did you do the side hustle before you went full time, or did you leave and just start off? No, I had temporary insanity and jumped off.
but do you, I mean, you look back and it's like, my story is a little bit different, leaving corporate and stuff, but I never regret it. I never looked back and I've had other, I've had people approach me since I left corporate too. And can we, the full-time job, I'm like, I have zero desire, like ever return back. Like, I love the freedom, but it's work. It's like, you got to hustle. You have to understand. I mean, you might feel like your first year, it's a honeymoon period, right? Like, your friends feel bad for you, so they're giving your business. But after that, honeymoon's over. You got to be real at this, right?
It is no joke. Like, I'm one of those people that I do not romanticize entrepreneurship. Yeah. I mean, this is one of my favorite quotes is, you don't build a business builds you. Like, it's the most demanding personal development journey that you could ever embark on. Yeah. And to that point, I get a lot of people who are newer into consulting or gigging, and they get one great client and they're like, yes, I made it. Yeah. And so I've had some of them who will sit in my workshops and they're like, no, I'm good. I have a great client. And I'm like, how many? I have one great client. I'm like, okay, so you need a pipeline, because you are now, and you're in a riskier job situation than you were in before. And there's a stat or something like businesses where over 35% of their revenues coming from like one guerrilla account typically don't survive if they lose that account. So even if you're a gigger, you've always got to know, where are my next contracts coming from? So totally important.
And I love, the conversation I had with you initially, you kind of started talking about process and identifying your numbers and things like, and you're very passionate about what you do, but you're also very methodical about the approach it takes to be successful. And I think that's what I love about, I'm on your email. I'm always reading your stuff, wherever you're posting. Like, I always learn some new things from you. I'm always very inspired from you. So let's close this off by talking about, where can people find you or reach out to you if they'd like to learn more about the workshops, the training that you offer, booking you for a speaker? Where should they do that?
Awesome. So they can go to stimulus.com. Oh my gosh, I love it.
And cue. I've got a whole team of people around the room with me right now with lighting and Mike. They're gonna fix my makeup. And then they put the banners up for me too. No, it's just me, you guys.
I love it. You're hired. No, yeah. So they could totally go to stimulus.com. There's the link to my calendar, my phone number's on there, everything's on there. And then of course, follow me on LinkedIn. That's the best way. So I tend to update pretty often, and that way we can stay in close communication. And hopefully I can learn from you too, because that's what I love about this platform, is learning from one another.
Learning from others, absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you again. Remember at the beginning of our conversation, I'm like, as we end, like, more people will keep joining, and now it went from like 35 to 37 to 41. It's like, the longer we're on, sometimes I don't know. I think like people start seeing us out here. So just to do a couple of final shout outs on here, Charmin. Hello, thanks for joining us. Hey, Jim from Metro Detroit, he's on the line with us here. Brad, thank you. He says, great call. Thank you very much. Charmin is asking, what does gig mean? Can you explain that, Liz?
Yeah, so gig is like an independent contractor. So you're doing a project. So I'm working on this particular project. When the project ends, our engagement ends. So there are people who go from project to project to project for payment.
Very good questions, because sometimes we hear about this whole side hustle. You're working a full-time job, but you have a side hustle that's bringing in additional income for you, and the gig is that project. And I sometimes I forget, and I appreciate Charmin for asking the question, because I don't ever like to assume when we're using keywords and phrases, if you don't know what they are, I'm always like, be like, what does that word mean? I have no idea. Me too. You guys are talking about a gig economy. Is there something else happening? I don't know what this is out there. So I just want to say thank you so much, Liz, for joining. You have inspired, you have informed, and you have educated. So you've done such a great job. And I'm so glad to have had the opportunity to chat with you again.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to be on your platform. You're amazing. I'm a huge fan of yours as well. And I've learned so much from you. So your audience, stay with Brenda. She will keep you guys informed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then while we're closing off here, I'm just going to pop up on screen for those of you who are watching. If you want to see an upcoming list of interviews and shows and schedules, and even the playback links, I'll be happy to share those with you. Just go to mellermarketing.com/subscribe and join my email list, and I'll be happy to share. Oh, look at that, right? We got our. It's kind of hard to do this. So this is something else I started doing. So we're going to give each other a high five now. Ready for this? It takes a second. It takes a second.
I love it.
1,000 miles away, so that worked out really well.
That is awesome. This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
And guys, definitely, if you're watching this in playback, leave a comment below. Let us know what you thought of the interview today. Make sure that you follow and connect with Liz on LinkedIn and let her know that you watched her from the broadcast. And we'll see you again soon for the next interview. Thanks again, Liz. You have a wonderful day.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.